Good morning. My name is Jack Fleming. I cover luxury real estate for the LA Times. We got a fun panel this morning. We're going to talk about the luxury real estate scene, specifically mansions. It's a weird time in luxury real estate right now. Builders and developers go bigger and better. We're still kind of in a weird time right now, post-pandemic. Figuring out who's going to buy what. We have spec developers building 30,000 square foot mansions that no one wants. We have developers thinking about sustainability and how to offset kind of the costs of building some of the biggest homes in America. We have a great panel today. We have two people from Las Vegas and then a perspective from the West Coast and East Coast as well. So yeah, let's jump right into it. Starting with Mike, I can just go through and do some introductions really quick.
My name is Mike Leipart. I'm the managing partner of the agency. We are a real estate marketing and sales firm, originally based in Beverly Hills, but now we have locations throughout the U.S.
Super. I'm Rob Jensen, broker owner of the Rob Jensen Company here in Las Vegas. We specialize in selling guard-gated real estate.
Michael Gardner with Luxus Design Build. We are a builder here in Las Vegas.
Good morning, Johnny Cruz from Robert A. M. Stern Architects. We are in New York City. I have to say, I flew in last night, and it's so nice to breathe some clean air today. So great to be here.
Glad you think our air is clean.
Have you been to New York?
Not yet.
I thought you were going to say, boy, my arms are tired.
Well, yeah, the title of the panel is Mansions, so yeah, I'd love to just talk about that, kind of thinking about, maybe what a mansion was considered 10 years ago it's a very changing, fluid definition. I'd love to just check in on some of the markets that we have represented here, maybe starting with you, Rob. Can you tell me about kind of how mansions have developed in Vegas for the past few years and what buyers are really looking for on the luxury end right now?
So in Vegas, generally there are definitely some larger projects going on right now, like 55,000 to 80,000 square feet, but generally 10 to 15,000 has sort of been the top end for a long time because it's generally been confined by the lot sizes here, where you don't have these multi-acre estates. You generally have these high-end communities behind guards, and the lot sizes might be anywhere from only 1/3 of an acre to 1/2 an acre. So people definitely want views. That's definitely on the top of people's lists, and then you're seeing more like pocket doors, higher-end amenities, that sort of thing to really do the outside, indoor-outdoor living concept. So.
You're talking about gates. Everyone wants gates right now. One set of gates, two set of gates. Is privacy kind of a big thing right now?
Yeah, privacy is definitely up there at the top for sure, and then security as well. It comes along with these gates and guarded gates.
Yeah, and then we have Johnny Cruz here who works on skyscrapers. Obviously, mansions are typically thought of as single-family residences, but in the modern day, we have mansions in the sky. I guess, yeah, over the past few years, what are you seeing the buyers want in terms of a condo and a high-rise?
Well, it is interesting. Let's start off with the fact that, their mansion that's out, 2-3 stories, what have you, that's going to remain. These types of, can you guys hear me? When they purchase like condominium products, these are really part of their portfolio, I would say. Maybe it's their 10th house, their 11th house, and what have you. And they're more, ways of, in my opinion, storing money or what's a better word, protecting your money, their investment properties, when you think about it. Now, in terms of expectations, they do want to have all the same finishes, the same things that they have and they enjoy with their single-family residence, but they just want this in a condominium. I'd say that's the main thing.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about sustainability as well. I think it's top of mind right now with climate disasters. We have wildfires in Canada. The air quality, as you mentioned, in New York is pretty rough right now. The West Coast is always dealing with something. Michael, you designed the 2023 New American Home. It's kind of a showcase of what sustainability can look like. in the luxury space. Can you tell me about how you got that home, and then what kind of design principles went into it to focus on sustainability?
Yeah. So I think one place to start is we typically don't label it sustainability, even though it's kind of this buzzword. We consider it just design. It's part of responsible design. It's part of actually having a process that relates the project to the site and its location. To me, sustainability, that word is more of a Band-Aid, right? It's like you're putting these things in a home to offset some maybe poor design decisions. Great example would be when you actually study a site and you look at daylighting and you evaluate the transition of that light over the period of time, morning, evening, understand what the environment's creating for you, then you can actually get away without having to have shades everywhere and all of those types of things. And same thing with views and those kind of components. And so it's, again, kind of responsible design, not necessarily a solution, but it's really more of if you want to label it sustainability, it's more of an add-on to the house, right? So if you get the bones right, you get the fundamentals right, all it's going to do is just make that project and that home that much better.
Yeah, and Mike, we're both based in LA. We kind of see this, this glut of mega mansions. Things get bigger and bigger. I guess, and this is something I'm genuinely curious about. Sometimes developers throw out sustainability as kind of a buzzword. I think it makes a buyer feel better. Is there a difference between kind of fake sustainability and a real path to being sustainable in luxury space?
Well, I think the whole green sustainability thing, which I think is super important, and I wish there were more of it. That said, it's generally not something people will pay a penny extra for. So it's a feel-good thing. It's not, and people in Los Angeles specifically really kind of define themselves as that. You'll have someone that has a $200,000 sports car and they have a Prius, and they think it, they feel like it says something about them. But the reality of it is that if you said to 100 buyers, if we just do it the old-fashioned way, this house is going to cost $10 million, and if we do it highly sustainable, it's going to cost $11 million, 99 out of 100 are going to save the $1 million. I was talking to a large national production home builder, and this was probably 6 or 7 years ago. And we were talking about sustainability, and he said, I give a buyer a list, and they can just check the boxes of the things they want in that house, right? And he said, nobody checks any of the sustainability things. They'd rather have a hot tub. And I have found that to be basically true. But the sustainability, if you can get it, like Michael's house is amazing, but nobody's going to pay $15 million because it's LEED Platinum. They're going to pay $15 million because they think they're going to have a freaking blast living there. It's just extra.
Yeah, and I think the part of it also is, I think we talked about this before, is, I equate it to the car industry in the sense, right? Mike just talked about a Prius. Well, why does a Prius have to look different than any other car, right? And that's what this new American home is really trying to showcase is, still looks like a home. You walk inside of it. If I didn't tell you that, it produces 15% more energy than it consumes, you would never know. It still it just felt like a home. And to me, that's when you have that big win, right? Because it's not like you're putting this big stamp on it, because you are right. Nobody's going to pay you more money. But once they buy it because they love it, they have no problem bragging about the fact that I got a LEED Platinum home,
1000%.
I'm producing more energy, my car that's in the garage plugged into that charger, I'm charging for free, right? You guys have to go down to the Tesla thing. I was able to, because my energy efficient HVAC compensate for all of these different things. They love the talking points and the buzzwords, but yes, you're absolutely right. Every home that I've designed and built, I've designed every single one to have a LEED certification of some capacity. Not one of my clients has been willing to pay the $5,000 it takes to get it certified. So I just started burying it in our architecture fees. So at the end of the home, they get a plaque, and it could be based on their decisions. It could be gold, platinum, and they go, what? And I go, yeah, see, it's not any different than doing anything else, and look what you can achieve. And we're just lacking that education, and we're getting there, but there's this whole compensation amount dollar thing. They want a tangible item rather than the actual holistic umbrella that kind of sustainability can bring.
Yeah, what's interesting is in the tall condominium when that question comes up, are we going to shoot for green, platinum, and so forth? If they don't have to do it, they're not going to do it. That's just the way it is.
Yep.
Unless it's a city ordinance, they're required. If they want to achieve more FAR, there are ways to increase the height of the building and so forth. But typically, they've never pressed that issue, unfortunately.
Do you think it's because they don't understand sustainability and what it really means, or is it just they only see it as a dollar amount?
It's a dollar amount. Yeah. That's really what it is. I think they see that delta. Well, 10 years ago, it was really big, but I think it's getting better. We're getting better. The industry is the green industry. So, but I do want to mention one project that I'm involved with in Vancouver, a pair of towers that is, it's not part of LEED, not part of that sort of standard. It's Passive House. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with that, but it is an energy standard, and essentially you're building airtight, super airtight with huge pieces of insulation on the outside. We're talking about 2.5 feet walls thick, and super insulated glass and so forth. And what that means is you can reduce the sizes of the systems, the AC, the heat and so forth. So hopefully that gets done in a couple of years. We'll see, but we're still on track to get that finished.
And just to touch on that part, if you go through the process correctly and you actually energy model the building, you truly can understand what and the performance of that house or building is going to be like. And the house on Rockstream, our south and west facing walls are thicker than our north facing walls to compensate for creating insulative qualities that take into account that siding, right? And you don't have to spend all the money everywhere where on the property, I guess is the point, right?
Yeah, so buyers want sustainability, at least on the surface. They want, you mentioned hot tubs, they want pools, pickleball is in right now. If someone's going to spend $30 million in a house, what's in vogue right now in terms of amenities and the extra perks that come with luxury homes?
Well, I think you have to, there's really two scenarios. So there are planned communities that have clubhouses and gyms and spas and all that stuff. And so when when a home's being built in a place like that, they don't have to check every box because a lot of those boxes are being checked, by the amenities that the project itself has. But when you get in, say, Beverly Hills or Bel Air or any place like that, then you really do have to, buyers want all of those things in their home. And even when you have a community set up, there's some things they'd probably rather not do around other people, so you will create some redundancy. Listen, wealthy people generally want to try to live for a very long time. Like, they look around and they go, this is awesome, I have a lot of money, life is fun, like I want to keep this party going as long as possible. So you will see a lot of wellness stuff. I was in a house a week ago that not only has a sauna and a cold plunge and a gym and all that stuff, but had a hyperbaric chamber, had a red light bed, just really every single piece of tech that we have available to us now in the longevity space. This house had all of that. So wellness, it's not spa, it's way more active, but wellness is a big part of what we see people incorporated in houses, unless that it's at a place like Escayo, where here in Vegas, or the Summit, or any planned community that is very amenity rich itself. Those houses don't necessarily need to have all that. Vegas has another amenity, and I mentioned this to you. Rob probably takes it for granted. Michael takes it for granted, but it is unique. The closets in Las Vegas are unlike anything I've ever seen in my life. Like, they're about as large as my first home. The garages are massive, and the closets are massive. And I tour a lot of property in Texas. Everything's supposed to be bigger in Texas. There's nowhere in the country where the closets and the garages are as large as they are here in Las Vegas. It's incredible.
And it's funny you should say that, because just the other day I'm still complaining that certain people are not building large enough closets or garages. So.
Yeah, that was one comment on Rockstream, was that closet is not big enough. And I mean, it's not big compared to some of the other closets that we've seen and done. We actually have one in design right now that's almost 2,800 square feet for the closet. It's 2 stories, and we've been working with Versace and basically creating a closet that mimics a Versace store for this client. And so there's a bar in there. There's lounge chairs, there's display for all of his expensive coats, artwork, things like that. So it's not this like throwaway room anymore. It's like, for him, it's his man cave. And we're putting a golf simulator in there. So and for that closet, it's functional as well as kind of display. But yeah, you're right. I mean, 2,800 square feet is huge.
But closets are more important. Like, we sold a project in Los Angeles, it has to be at least 8 years ago. And it was not particularly unique in any way other than it had larger closets. Like that was its main kind of thing that it had. And interestingly enough, we sold that whole building because somebody walked in and went, finally, this is a place that can hold all my clothes. Because in the condo world, not the only, but the predominant buyer in the condo world is outside of New York City or Miami, where condo living is the standard. They're coming from a single family home, right? And they're downsizing. The kids are off at school, whatever. They don't need all that space. They want to travel more. But the one thing they don't want less of, they're willing to take less of everything. The one thing they don't want less of is their clothes. And so the closets become imperative that they be ample.
And I can definitely confirm that in the tall tower world. I don't care if you're in Los Angeles, Texas, Miami. I have projects in all 3 states currently ongoing, and that's the biggest sort of request I get from the realtor that we told Dylan was make the closets bigger. Yes, okay, how do I get more space out of this footprint? New York, we're a little more forgiving because we're dealing with smaller city blocks. That's another story. But yes, closets is definitely a big must.
So we've got closets, garages, and immortality in the form of wellness.
Yeah, and I mean, and all the other stuff I think is pretty standard. They have, it's completely connected. There is a firm called Delos, which I believe is now part of LEED itself, that has this whole kind of circadian lights and HVAC, and it's got a sensor, and if the air's a little dirty that day, everything runs twice as hard. But I have yet to see that become like a request, right? Like the normal luxury stuff, that didn't go away. You know, like you got to do all the stuff we used to do really well, and then you got to add this other stuff. It's nothing faded away.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, one last thing is, especially with condominiums, nowadays, for the past 20 years, branded products are kind of becoming very, very popular. And each brand, whatever flag that might be, the Four Seasons, the Ritz, let's say, Waldorf Astoria, each have their own sets of unique standards. For instance, we have to have a cigar room, we have to have a cutting garden, we have to have a garden somewhere on the property. Those types of things are new, but they're unique to the various flags that are sort of joining forces with developers.
Yeah, and something that I think just sort of accelerated home amenities was of course COVID, with everybody being locked up and wanting bigger properties, and just even home gyms, and as Michael was mentioning, indoor driving, golf courses with the big screens. Yep. And then something on the sustainability front, like Vegas, a lot of it's being sort of more dictated by the water district, saying more, desert landscaping, and now the pools are limited in size to 600 square feet. So there are some that are still being built that are larger because they're able to get their permits through in time, but that's going to be a big one that's interesting. We'll see how that looks on bigger properties in the future. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of the pandemic, we're kind of in a weird space with the market right now. It felt like we had these few record-setting years, and then kind of everyone who was going to buy a house bought a house already. Obviously, interest rates are high, but what are the main things that have to happen to get the market back on track?
Well, I think what is on track, right? I think that's the discussion. I would argue that the last 2 years the market wasn't on track. The market was off the tracks. It's not supposed to be that easy to sell a $20 million home. It's just not, and you're certainly not supposed to have people lining up and fighting each other to do it. So I would say that was just like a raging party, and now everyone has a hangover. But if you look at anything in a relative term, we are not in a bad spot. The S&P is at 4,300. That is a number that we had when things were going crazy during the pandemic. So people were just as rich today as they were when people were buying real estate like there was no tomorrow, right? So that's not it. And interest rates on any historical level are not that high right now. I'm old, but my first mortgage was 8%. Interest rates aren't supposed to be 1.5 or 2 or 3. That's not normal. So the good times are what weren't normal. So we've already seen, we already see it picking back up, but it's not picking back up to get to where it was. That was parabolic. Things that go parabolic come down just as sharp. We're back on a normalized market where if you build something and it's better than everything else and it's reasonably priced, people buy it. If you are way overpriced, they won't buy it. If it's not good, they won't buy it. That's a normal market. So I don't subscribe to a lot of the doomsday stuff unless we're talking about office, and then I subscribe to all of it. But we have seen transactions significantly pick up this year, and I'm very comfortable with where we're at.
Yeah. And just to play off of the interest rates, I always look at the spread, right? So now you can put your money in a money market account and get 3.5%, 4%.
That's right.
And you're spending 7.5% on your home. Well, it's still 3.5% spread, which is what we were getting before. It's just you don't do that kind of, deductive reasoning to go, we're actually in the same place as we were. You're just not going to put all your money into, you're going to put more money into your real estate now to get it to a number that works, where previously you'd put as little as possible or as much as possible because you're not making anything in the bank, right?
The slowdown was mostly emotional. wealthy people don't want to look stupid. So no one wants to be the guy that bought at the absolute top. And so when things got a little shaky, everyone hit the brakes because they don't want to look dumb. It doesn't affect them. If they pay $1 million more or $1 million less for the house or the condo, it's immaterial. Like, it's not about the money. It's about pride. It's about, looking smart or looking dumb. And that's what hit the brakes on most of the buyers in the luxury space. And now the world didn't fall apart, and there's not blood in the streets, and prices aren't 40% cheaper, and now they're coming back because they're impatient and they want their new things.
Yeah, I mean, Vegas sort of stalled out for a little bit beginning of the year because we were coming off these highs where, everybody had it in their head where they were at in that, peak of April 2022. And we're in no rush to sell for less than what they perceive their home was worth. But there's always going to be folks that are motivated to sell, not because they're desperate, but because of financial, personal, whatever reasons. And after, probably 3-4 months, there started to be more sales, more data, where it just became a little more apparent where homes need to be priced if they're going to sell. And you're seeing a lot of people that bought in 21, 22 lease their homes because those homes prices have come down a bit under that amount. But to just put it in perspective for just home sales over 1 million, in 2019, pre-COVID, fantastic year for Las Vegas real estate. There were 73 homes that sold for over 1 million, whereas, for the month of May, versus just this last May, there were 138. So almost double. Of course, pricing has gone up substantially, but and then the sort of last little piece of the puzzle is you have sort of two different markets going on in Vegas. You have most buyers are looking for new or like new, versus most of the inventory in Vegas is, dated, at least in the buyer's eyes. Even if it's only 10 years old, they're saying it's dated, too much work. And so you have lower amounts of buyers, smaller demand for that amount of supply. So that's going to be the market that gets, might see a little more price adjustments in the future.
I feel like Vegas also kind of benefited from a lot of Californians moving out. Is that who you've seen? I guess who are the new buyers here?
Oh yeah, during the pandemic, it was San Francisco all the way. So, but yeah.
But I would say, I've been coming to Vegas for work for 13 years, and what COVID brought to light has been happening for a very long time. Vegas is not a destination because you love to gamble, so you buy you go ahead and buy a home there. And Vegas is the diversity of the people that are buying homes at Ascaya is really impressive. From lots of different parts of the country, lots of different types of people. Vegas is becoming a true one of the top lifestyle destinations in the United States right now, because it's not near as cheap as it used to be, but it's still a relative value to other markets. Obviously, the tax situation is fantastic, and it's an easy town to live in. You don't ever have to come to the Strip if you don't want to. There's a great city out there around this place. And I believe the reasons Vegas benefited so much in COVID are kind of evergreen. California's, our taxes, and I live in California. I love California. I'm the goofy guy. I'm an unabashed fan of Los Angeles. I love it. I say a bunch of negative things about it, but I love the place. And our taxes aren't gonna get cheaper, right? We're not gonna stop having fires. It's going to be very difficult to deal with all the regulations and all the dumb stuff that we can come up with out there. So I believe Vegas's attraction is pretty evergreen. I think you will continue to see net the population grow.
Yeah, and I think it's been very positive for the Vegas luxury market too, because we're starting to get a layer of sophistication here that I don't think we've had on a kind of a mass scale. So we're starting to see higher quality homes, higher quality products going into the homes. And it's that influx of people has only elevated, I think, the market here, which I think also has kept the prices pretty stable. Plus also the fact that construction costs aren't going down. And so one of the concerns I've had in the back of my pocket is once construction costs slide, now there's not that upward pressure on the pricing to keep that stability there. And as we've seen supply chains open, product availability around, we're still seeing construction prices sitting at an all-time high here. And you can't go replace a home for that much cheaper than just buying something that's already completed. And as Michael touched on earlier, it could be 2-3 years from the day you pick a lot to you move into your house. So if you have inventory and it is unique and it's high quality, and it's sophisticated enough to meet the demands of the market that's not necessarily always been in Las Vegas, you have kind of a home run.
I think another wrinkle of the pandemic was no one's going to the office anymore. You have these huge commercial buildings that are just sitting empty. Johnny, are you putting luxury condos into these buildings? What's going on?
We're looking into that, and I'll give you some context behind that. Of course, New York City has a large amount of unused office space. Post-pandemic, people get used to working remotely, deciding to stay remote, and then you have these shells of buildings. I forget what the figures are, but it's in the millions of square feet that are just empty, sitting there, mothballs. So that's a huge problem, an enormous problem, probably the biggest issue that New York City is facing right now. I think the second biggest issue is housing. Before I get to it, we're looking into converting some of these into luxury condominiums, is housing. I think in the last 10 years, New York added something to the tune of 1.6 million jobs. Units that were available during that time for new construction, 200,000. So that's a huge problem. What are you going to do with that? So there have been lots of discussions. The city, Mayor Adams is on top of this, trying to figure out, how to solve the issue, this housing issue. People are getting priced out, of course, and all those things and so forth. But the issue is when you have an office plate, it's deep, it's huge, right? It's not ideal to outfit with a rental units, condominiums, and those types of things. So what we are doing is rehabilitating existing property. We just finished a building called Belmore, which was a complete gut renovation. We kept the building. We didn't tear it down. In fact, it was landmarks. We couldn't tear it down, but so that's one of the things that we're trying to use existing stock. This is also speaks to sustainability, right? And yep, adaptive reuse. There you go. And looking for existing apartment houses like that, and doing our work on it. So.
I think what's cool about that too is it allows the architectural industry to really reevaluate what housing is. Right? We've had this kind of kid apart, and all right, here's a 1-bedroom apartment. It's been like that. You can go into almost every city. They all similarly feel the exact same because it's the same developer moving stuff around the country. When you have a confined, defined, and it's no different than a custom lot, really. It's got these, for all intents and purposes, a box that we've got to put something inside of, right? It starts to evaluate, okay, what do we need to do differently, right? So if you have this huge core in the middle, well, when you look at people in general, we gravitate towards light. Like, you watch anybody walk into a room, they always move towards the light first. It's like this gravitational pull. And it plays off of our relationship to nature. And so if you have this office box that has a dark hole in the middle, nobody's gonna wanna go spend time in that space. So the value dollar proposition of that gets better and better as you get closer to the light, right? So now you've got to evaluate what can you make a dark space. Well, here's your big closet opportunity, right? So again, it's those types of reinventing what we thought we knew is what I think is a great opportunity to, we have to elevate and change.
But by the same token, I think we have to reconsider how we're doing offices so that they can be repurposed when they,
Well,
run their lives.
the way to solve that is banks need to stop loaning money to people to build offices. That's the part that makes me crazy. It is very hard as a developer to get a loan to build a condominium building. It's very hard. And yet we all understand that every major city in the US is underhoused, and it's just a matter of how significantly it's underhoused, but they all are. And building less isn't going to help, right? Like that just makes it more expensive. Even if we're building expensive stuff, not building that expensive stuff makes everything more expensive. And it's very hard to get a loan to do that. It's a little bit easier to get an apartment loan. That's why you see so many apartment buildings being built now where it used to be that would have been a condominium building. But the easiest loan to get is an office building. And why that is stunning to me. Like, look around. We're not going there anymore.
Yeah, and I think it plays into attorneys, litigation, things like that. Condo buildings are one of the highest litigated building types. You have to do wrap policies on them, so your costs get way out of control. And if you're a bank, right, and you're lending on something and it's gonna take, whatever the sellout is, you're tied to that development, which means that then you're gonna be part of this potential litigation, where office space is a asset that someone's leasing out, 100%. And you're not going to be jumping onto that, litigation bandwagon. And also, my experience has been the amount of cash outlay to go get a loan for a condo project or anything that's resellable is so much more that it.
But I'm willing to bet that if I read the LA Times business section, or I got on Real Deal last 7 days, somebody just announced they're building a new office building.
New York.
I mean, it's just, it makes no sense.
Yeah, and I would say all of our luxury clients that we're doing homes for right now, not one of them says they go to the office every day. And that's really influenced the design of our homes. So we have indoor office spaces, right? And they're not big anymore. A lot of our clients are hanging out in a covered patio with their feet in the pool, on their laptop, doing Zoom, enjoying their environment. And it's definitely not like I'm getting in my car, driving to the office anymore. Everybody got used to collaborating over Zoom. One test I always do is I walk clients through one of our homes and say, tell me what size you think your bedroom or office needs to be. Okay? Oh, it's got to be, this big. So I walk into this room. I go, how does this feel? Oh, this is a perfect size. I said, this is 35% less square footage than you told me you needed, right? And I think that plays into where we were talking initially about mansions and square footage. I'm seeing a huge contraction in inside square footage to having outside larger outdoor spaces because people are actually working out there.
We have time for a few questions.
You mentioned some sustainability and space and wellness, but what about security? Given the pandemic, climate change, wildfires, you've got social unrest, rising crime rates, you have Paul Pelosi getting attacked. What are you seeing as far as safety?
Thank you for bringing that up, because security, I would say, is number one. I'd say every single thing that I've waxed on about up here is actually secondary to security. Security, I believe now, is the number one box that has to be checked. We just, whether we live in a different time or we just perceive that we live in a different time, regardless, That is the number one item. You have parents buying their college kids $2 million condos because it's secure for them to go to college. Like the amount of money that is spent on security, and it's not an accident that Rob, when he introduced himself, said he specializes in gated communities, right? Like that implies something.
Yeah.
So security is number one. A hyperbaric chamber, that's like 19, okay? You have to feel safe.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's interesting too, because a lot of folks come from other states where it's these communities with a guarded gate out front is not very common. And then they sort of get up to speed in Las Vegas, where it's also just a lot of the communities such as Ascaya and the Summit, where a lot of these custom homes, golf course, view lots are behind these guard gates. So kind of original old school Vegas down on like Tamayasu, where the Sultan used to live, and had a place along with, Mike Tyson and not the Costa Shenandoah, Wayne Newton. Yeah, but it's like those are definitely not as in vogue these days. Maybe it'll come back, but these guard gated communities where they really, put a lot of effort into not just the people up front, but the roving security. I mean, that's really just become a thing, because for many reasons, whether they're leaving their home unattended or they've just got their kids at home by themselves, or a family member at home with the kids, they just like to have that safety.
Yeah, and I think design can play a huge role into that as well. When you have these view lots, the back of these homes to the view are all glass. So if you can see all the way into, a lot of these homes, and so you can see whether someone's home or not. The lights are on, lights are off. So from a technology standpoint, we've been putting in a lot of technology to have the perception that someone's living there that actually isn't. So we're putting blind systems in and lighting controls that are turning on at random times, in addition to alarms and cameras and things like that. But making the homes look like they're lived in when they are not really helps, because it doesn't seem like nobody can watch that house and know when someone's coming in the house, when they are there, or we know, like in Cabo, right? Everybody comes for Thanksgiving and then they go for Christmas, and the rest of the year the houses are empty. So you're trying to break that predictability down, can really help. And then secondarily, the homes facing the street. I always laugh when I'm driving up some streets and all you can do is see right into the homes, right? There's all this glass and this street presence and lack of privacy. I think that lack of privacy creates a lot of security issues. Even within a gated community, there's still things that happen. They actually sometimes become a larger target because they know there's better stuff behind the door. So if they can get in, they actually want to go there and versus other parts of the community.
I mean, there's like a whole new arms race, coming with gates. It's like, oh, you live in a community where you just have one gate? I like, there's two gates at my house, and we sell a gated community here, and I would say, not everyone, but there are a lot of requests to like put a gate at their house, or hey, if I buy all the lots on this street, can I gate it, can I gate the street? Like, it's a gate within a gate within a gate. But yeah, security is number one.
Yeah. You're seeing more cases like this fallback rooms?
Yeah, I mean, number one, it's an unfortunate topic that we had to bring this up and address this, but I do agree it's important right now. And in terms of the condominium towers that I work on, one of the things we do incorporate are drop-offs, secured drop-offs, porte cochere, if you will. And those typically have gates. They are open during the daytime, but they're closed at night. Now, once a car comes in, let's see, you have the car, you have valet and so forth, there are a number of attendants. It's just the caliber of the buildings that I'm talking about right here, the doorman, the concierge. So there's quite a few levels of security that's folded into the project. But in a perfect world, we would not need gated communities or gates, but it's the reality right now.
Yeah, we talked for one more quick one.
Yeah, part of the security conversation is resilience. And, in an era where your private jet may not be able to storm, what are the must-have resilience features for mansions today?
Johnny, you want to?
Yeah, some of the things that are being done right now, like there was a time we had emergency generators in basements on first floors. Now what I'm seeing and what we're trying to do is raise that up. Seas are rising and we will see more floods, but the emergency equipment, life safety, those types of things, we are locating those systems further up the building. Now, is it taking away from valuable, sellable space? Yes, but it's the right thing to do. So those are some of the things that I see happening right now, especially in the taller condominium projects.
And then on the single family side, you see a lot of redundancy. Just, this is how this works, and if it doesn't work, we have a whole other system, and that's how it works. Like, so you see a lot of redundancy. And, to your point, like, there are systems out there now where if there were a wildfire and there is a lot of smoke in the air, like your HVAC knows how to handle that. Mm-hmm. Like, you're still breathing clean air inside the house. So they're clean water, electricity, all that stuff. On the really high end, you're seeing complete redundancy in those houses.
Yeah, the homes we do, you can have, everything's got MERV 13 filters. It's built so tight that you have to bring in the fresh air. You can stop the fresh air, but there's 10 units that heat or cool the home. So if there is somewhat of a collapse with the energy grid, there's solar battery backups, and then our systems will take a certain part of the home and just heat or cool and keep those refrigeration working so you don't lose food and things like that. But we evaluate what are the most important spaces to have that redundancy, because it is a waste to make the whole house redundant.
For sure. And also, you, like all things luxury real estate, you can just take it to a stupid level. And at some point, you just have to ask yourself, well, would it even make sense to try to survive that? Right? Like, like if we were really in that bad of a spot, do I even want to be here? So like if I lived in Texas, I would definitely, when the energy grid seems to kind of go in and out on a whim, I would certainly want, batteries and backup and, all that stuff. But there is a certain level of, if the event is that catastrophic, I'm not even sure I want to survive.
On that positive note.
But let me tell you about wellness.
That's all we got. Thank you so much for our panelists.